So Paru, you're obviously a long-term friend of the podcast.
Yes.
And you work at the ABC in a content-led organisation where customer value isn't just built by product and engineering. There's also content and marketing that you have to work with as well. So we're here to kind of deep dive a little bit on that. But I guess before we get into it, just to throw back to our last interview with you, you described yourself as a wine lover, a travel lover, and a product nerd. And I just wanted to ask you, if you had to pick one of those three to identify with for the rest of your life, which one would it be?
I'm going to say wine nerd / wine lover.
Wow.
Because I think the way the world is going, we might need lots more wine, or at least like good wine.
Nice. And for those that don't know, Paru actually used to own a winery. So
Small one in the Hunter Valley, so a side gig that, we can talk a whole other podcast about, but probably not the product power.
Well, if people interesting around that, that's actually Paru was talking about that in Agile Australia 1 year as well.
Well, I actually did the very first version of that talk here at the last conference in 2019.
Oh, wow.
So this was like the safe space and the, starting point for that.
Oh, my God. You need to introduce us some good wine after this call as well.
So we're obviously not here to talk about wine, though, unfortunately.
I wish we are.
Note for next time, I think we need to get to it. But when people talk about product trios, they usually think product, engineering, design, right? And in your world, can you talk about what that actually looks like?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think Harry mentioned the trio a couple of times as well earlier today. So just for a bit of context, I work at the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, and I specifically work amongst the listen and music team. So that's one of our 3 sort of flagship brands, probably maybe not as well known as, News and iView. But we essentially have, Triple J, Listen, all of these sort of products underneath that. And it is very much, I think, a realization that a few of us have had that people come to us for, Australian music, news, local stories, and local content. And that really is sort of our primary value creation engine. And so we still work in trios in terms of, product manager, engineering, and design. But on top of that, we have trialed working in content lead, marketing lead, as well as a product lead. So that's, I suppose, our adaptation of a trio, which looks a bit different to what I think a lot of tech and product dogs normally call a trio.
So how does the trio work in day-to-day?
So I'll probably give you an example of something we, built recently. We landed on a customer problem to solve around kids' audio. And obviously the realization and also the feedback from the audience that parents and educators wanted safe, trusted, ad-free, and screen-free proposition, for stories and podcasts for kids. So that's something we are still building parts of it, but we started that towards the end of last year, and we did a launch of the initial feature earlier this year. And that's an example of where we had, if you take your, typical double diamond of discovery and then delivery, we had content marketing, and when I say product, I mean, product in the sense of engineering and design, etc. Everyone was part of that discovery of problem definition. So we still have our research teams, etc., who give us the mechanisms to do the research and things like that. But we still had, say, audio contents lead, who was helping us design the interviews, and really kind of a collaborative effort for people to understand where the problem actually was. These are the content people who actually know the audience the best. So why would we not bring them into the problem discovery as early as possible?
Of course, yeah.
So I guess like an example of how we started that sort of kickoff of that problem.
To be honest, my kids love the Kids Listen app. We always use it kind of before bed.
Yeah.
But it's also fascinating because like the content, the ABC radio has been around for decades, long before the digital
Yes.
aspect of it and digital product management and so forth. So there's so much experience and knowledge and customer understanding there that you would be leveraging, right? So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because I know, Paru, you also have, before ABC, you also have a lot of experience working in a non-content environment. So what do you think is the biggest difference from delivery and discovery perspective? What's the biggest difference between content-led organizations and, other product organizations?
I mean, this is my definition. I could be very wrong. But to me, it's where the primary value is created, right? So if I come back to the ABC, as you said, people come to us for the content. Nobody's coming to us going, oh my God, the Listen app is amazing. Let me, go download that.
I download iView. So
yes, or iView. I won't hold that against you. Whereas I think a lot of places where I've worked previously has been, I suppose we could say it's really product-led, or it's a technology org that treats all of these other people as stakeholders. And I mean, that's fine, but I think stakeholder has this element of someone who's on the sidelines, kind of dipping in and out, and it didn't really give us that sort of equal feeling. Whereas this way of working, I found different in that, there is an equal partnership. There are some stages where content want very much to do it that certain way, and we kind of have to go, but we have the expertise to advise you that you should probably do it this way instead. So I think it's that notion of stakeholder versus a true partner. To me, I think at least it's my mindset has changed on that. Yeah. And then also this view of a cross-functional team. It's great if you have a cross-functional team of engineering, product, and design, but shouldn't your cross-functional team be more than that? Again, depending on where your, values created or values realized.
Could you help us paint the picture of an example of where that cross-functional teams come together to solve a problem?
Yeah, I think I'll go back to the kids, listening experience that we launched, and if you may have Kiet seen a Bluey listen along that popped up in the app, and that was the culmination of the first phase of this kids listen work that we did. So I think I already gave you a little bit of a picture on what happened at the beginning of the problem definition discovery. Yeah. And then we had a whole bunch of problems, and we had both content and marketing had a campaign in mind. So, we took their advice in hand as well. So they're also part of the trio. And content also then helped us to prioritize the content strategy of what would be in that first push of the release and things like that. So if you kind of, again, go back to that double diamond, in that case, prioritization was not just a product decision. It became a content and a marketing decision. Mm-hmm. But when it came to delivery, it's very much design, engineering, product management with, the supporting practices helped actually build that and obviously release that and monitor that and set up experiments and all of those kind of things. So it's still the sort of typical model, but how people are involved seems to me quite different to what I've seen other orgs do.
100%.
Other, places I've been in. Is kind of you do all these things and you might do a deck of your discovery findings and present that to the people. Mm. But having them involved in creating your interview script, so having them attend your user testing, is a whole other level of involvement.
Yeah, because ABC is also really large organizations as well. And then definitely sounds like there's a lot of stakeholder group you involving in this end-to-end. And I assume that it's not happening in day one. There is quite a lot of kind of operation model redesign. And I don't know, it's top-down or bottom-up or some sort of work need to happen to make that happen. So what's your experience? How did that happen, basically?
It was definitely not day one. I've been there for about 3.5 years. And even in my time there, I wouldn't say all 3.5 years have been working this way.
Yeah.
So I think it's really a combination of, I suppose, both sides, or all three sides have evolved to realize that everyone brings their own shared expertise.
So it's organically kind of happened. Everyone have the pivot moment.
I'd
that
say
we
a
should
little bit,
collaborate.
but I would also say we have had some great leaders in the product space really kind of model that behavior. So to kind of go, you know, we're doing this discovery, but hey, I want to bring somebody from your team in, content people, and, you know, hey, would you like to be involved, marketing people? And so that's definitely been an intentional change and a shift. So it did not happen. I think if we hadn't like been conscious of that, it wouldn't have happened so easily. Maybe it would have happened eventually.
Was there a trigger event or like a driver that kind of made the leaders or the team aware that, oh, actually, what we're currently doing could be better?
I think there's been moments where, like, some of our numbers in the past have not been good. And I know we're a public organization and, you know, we don't like report on revenue, etc. But we have a whole other mandate to the Australian taxpayers, like all of you, to really kind of still show that we're providing value, right? So I think some of those numbers, especially kind of post-COVID, you know, there was definitely a sort of lull in listening numbers and a whole bunch of, you know, competitors. Like if you look at the audio space, we've got the likes of Spotify, we've got Apple, we've got Listener, iHeart, all of these players. And yes, we're a free product, but still these are the competitors that we have to deal with. So it's, I think I was talking to Cheryl earlier about constraints. Like we would always kind of see this as a bit of a constraint that, you know, oh, whoa, it's us, like we're a product, but we're in a media organization. But then almost like flipping a little bit to go, hang on, how do I still work and make this like constraint still workable?
How did you make constraints like workable?
Well, but this is one of those examples, right, of thinking of trios, but doing it a bit differently. And also like letting go of that ego that a lot of us have that, you know, we know everything because we talk to customers, sure. We do user testing, we do research, but these are, you know, content people who've, as you said, been creating like content magic for so much longer than even like our tech teams have existed. So I think it's really a mix of all of those kind of triggers, I suppose.
You mentioned success, right? And how we actually measure it. Like, would you be comfortable sharing kind of any of the lagging or leading indicators?
Let me see if anyone from the... No, Tim's not here. You are recording. I'll just say, I come back to the kids' experience. Things that we look for as like leading metrics, you know, time spent listening is a good way for us to kind of start looking at it. Or number of plays to a degree helps us. But with the kids listen, the first part that we launched, we did see double the number of weekly active kids listeners. Wow. So, you know, we're hoping that that's a positive, that we've been able to kind of go, all right, we've hit that problem space of, you know, people trust us. We already have a great catalog of ABC Kids and a good brand there. Yeah. So that's probably an example of what I'm allowed to tell you.
Yeah, so if my interpretation is correct, then so everyone comes together, jointly does discovery and aligns on, hey, what are the opportunities, what are the problems we're solving for? Marketing's kind of driven the strategy side to say, hey, we're going to double tap on this opportunity. It's revolving around a campaign of Bluey. And then the content teams come along and said, hey, okay, within those constraints, this is how we prioritize. And then kind of the product team working together with everyone else is then kind of executing to delivery. And those are big numbers in terms of uplift, right?
Yeah, we'll see if we can sustain it.
Yeah.
But also, you know, I'm not saying that against the benchmark of our competitors, those are big numbers. So I think there's something a little bit about play to your strengths. And we know that this is a strength of ours that, you know, kids' content is definitely something that does very well at the ABC, and some of our other competitors don't really play well in that space. So there's, I suppose, again, like a bit of, we did a talk at Agile Australia where we talked about how do we pick which opportunities we pursue. And so there's a little bit of, great, you can go after podcasts, for instance, but will you ever beat Spotify in terms of their catalog as compared to a public broadcaster who has to, serve all of Australia?
Yeah. Out of curiosity, how does a small podcast get onto the ABC?
Great. That's an offline conversation. We need some wine happening first.
Some audio content leads, so you need to. I just want to qualify also one thing, and this is something we tried and failed, was to bring these content and marketing folks into our product rituals. So, these are people who've interviewed Nirvana and written all these amazing stories. So, they're comfortable with complex communication, but they are not comfortable with, it's not fair to put them in the middle of jargon. So things like, we've given you access to Jira and Confluence. They're like, okay, great. Or, come to, sprint planning. And they're like, what?
Yes.
So they are not in our day-to-day in that sense. And I think that was a lesson, again, we had to go, hang on, isn't it shouldn't everybody be looking in Jira and shouldn't everybody be reading Confluence?
This is something I learned only very recently. There are people outside from tech actually don't know about Jira, Confluence, Sprint, Scrum, all these things.
But
is all
ultimately, again, if you are keeping them in the loop, for the relevant parts that that they need to be involved in and they're across, and we still we do our showcases and we tell them when to expect delivery or something is delayed, etc. But that was the other nuance, two other sort of nuances, I guess, is this image of these people sitting with us in sprint planning or backlog grooming. It's just unrealistic.
Yes. Yeah.
I do have questions about specific for Paru, because Paru is actually a coach, product coach as well. So I'm really curious of what does product coach do in ABC? What does it look like?
I will give you the typical coach answer and say depends.
We all go through the same training.
It depends on which teams you're working with and what state they're in, what is the big thing on their outcomes list to deliver. But I think overall, ever since I've been at the ABC and even before, the coaching team have really worked hard to move people from outputs oriented to more outcomes and talking about, audiences and problems they're facing and all of those things that we, sometimes I think take for granted, but you'll still find people come to us with this thing of, hey, I have this solution and I need you to just build it. But having that sort of common language now of, but let's just take a minute to understand what the problem is you're trying to solve. Let us, you can be part of the discovery, but we have our research team who can do some fact-finding for you, or you might have some numbers for us. So
you get a lot of pressure now to do quick discovery now, because if the person already have a solution in mind, are they?
Yes, sometimes. And that's just the reality of it. We had our MD the other day kind of tell us, or he actually announced to the press, so I can tell you all, that we were changing our homepage, for instance. And the homepage, I don't know if people remember this, but the homepage actually was separate to news and other products. But he announced to the press that we were going to make the homepage the news page. And so that's an example of something that's already been decided. And you just have to sometimes bite the bullet and run with it. But then all we said was, could we test, can we do some experiments, and we'll keep an eye on numbers. Are we allowed to, report back on what the success looks like post the change? So it's again kind of going, what can I do within this constraint of...
That's exactly, when you say that, that's exactly in my head. Oh, that's what a constraint looks like. Yes, no, that's a great example.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I did forgot to mention at the beginning, we leave these 2 chairs here because we wanted to make sure people can ask questions as well. So you are very welcome to, Adam is going to pass the microphone around if you have questions, or you can actually just come up here and pick up microphone anytime.
Just give me easy questions.
Yeah. Does anyone have any question? Because we do have a few we can run through, but if anyone got any question, you can put your hands up.
No, I explained it so well that everybody's across it.
Does anyone need another coffee?
It is that time of the day.
It is that time of day.
Or wine.
Hi, I'm Diane. I'm a product tragic from way back. So you mentioned you had different types of trios, and I'm curious how you managed the egos amongst those trios. So product, engineering, design kind of have got used to working with each other. Marty Kagan told us that's what we had to do, and we were like, okay, we'll do that. But you have people who don't know Marty Kagan.
Yeah.
They also don't know Jira. And they're like, what do you mean we are talking with you, we're pairing with you? What does that mean? How do you, what? So how do you get around that?
I think this one comes back to, even like our leadership team modeling that. So it's definitely a cultural change that's had to happen where previously we were just like the order takers, content were like, no, got this thing, want you to do it, go build it. And again, like credit to Joel, who's our head of department, and he's worked quite a lot to really kind of build that trust to say, sure, we'll do this one for you, but next time, like we'd like to trial this thing. So I'd be lying if I said that hasn't taken quite a few years. And I think having won the trust with his peers, so his, the content lead and marketing and other parts of it, I think that's really helped us when it comes then to the next level down. So it's really kind of, I know it's naive to say like leaders should model it, but I think if you don't see that happening at the top, it's very much like content would be like, I don't need you to ask me questions, just, go build it. And we definitely would say have evolved like from that culture. So, and I think even being able to show them some experiments and, some results and eventually, again, like build that trust has probably helped us. And I wouldn't say it's the same level of sort of maturity across the ABC as well. So it's really, because it's such a complex org, we've been able to influence like the pockets of people that we work with. That's the reality of it.
I'd love to double click on that culture change piece, because going from plan and execute in terms of mindset to customer problem first, thinking in bets, what are the opportunities? Yes, it helps when it's top down, but as a product coach, what was the hardest part for you specifically working with the teams?
I think the prioritization part has been hard.
If you think about prioritization,
Yeah.
like what was there a specific example where?
Oh, I see, yeah. So I think a couple of operating model changes. One is we've been trialing the weighted cost of delay of prioritization, and that's helped again with looking at urgency and impact as well as effort. So that's been a change across like our operating model, at least in our like, sort of digital product world. And the other part is we've rolled out this concept of strategic bets. So it's been about a year now since we've started that way of working. And it's very much sort of anybody is free to suggest a bet as long as they can tie it back to a customer problem. And they come with data and are accountable then for the success metrics afterwards. So we have a bet that's been in measure now for quite a few weeks. And we've found that we actually didn't have the analytics in place to measure the thing. That some of the things that we said we would measure were not like set up. So that's like, again, a learning.
Yes.
But I think even that operating model of the leadership team support the bets. And so it's easy again for us to go to content or marketing and say, we can show you our capacity for the quarter, but we have these 2 bets that are prioritized across the department. And so therefore, we can do A and B with you, but just know that the capacity is what it looks like at the moment.
Normally, is the bet can allow. Can I place a bet for 5 years? I believe.
No.
Okay.
Not.
So how long? What's the time limit for the bet?
We've gotten better in like 3 quarters. Most of our strategic bets are now 1 to 2 quarters.
Okay, cool.
Which again sounds maybe quite long in this day and age of, AI and weekly priorities changing, but we are the ABC. We're a large media org, so that's kind of our cadence
if
that
you
we
invest
work
in a
in.
small indie like a podcast, that's definitely within 2 quarters.
These
going to see
guys
the
are just
result.
plugging their podcast. Yeah, so we do have a couple of bets that have gone over, but we're doing retrospectives on those
Yeah.
to learn why, they went much longer and how we can avoid, I suppose, like
Yeah,
those
because
kind of longer tail bets.
Because you mentioned that everyone can come up with a bet and assume they have. Do you have a number of limit of the bet you can do per quarter?
Yeah, so we have a WIP limit of 5.
Okay.
And that's been reducing, which is quite nice to see. So when we first started, the first sort of 2 or 3 quarters, we had 5 bets. But this quarter, we've got 4 or 3 from memory.
Yeah. No, that's a really good.
We've kind of talked about a whole bunch of stuff. This wasn't on us.
We did, and we're very proud of ourselves. We didn't actually talk about AI for the whole
Yes,
40
so
minutes.
I will not talk about AI in this session.
I thought I'd just keep going on the constraints. We had a brief talk out in the hallway. How do you find the balance between accepting the constraints and respectfully challenging them as well? And an example, please, with instructions of how to do it.
I mean, I can talk to, so I spoke about prioritization. And this is, a constraint that every org, I'm sure, has, is you have teams that can't build fast, or maybe not so much, like our teams are quite small and we find, there's always a backlog of things that we could do. And that was one of the constraints that we've kind of acknowledged: public funding, and we have to be careful on where we spend and where we invest and things like that. So if I take that constraint as an example, we've had multiple requests for Chromecast enhancements and things like that with the Listen app. And so we did the prioritization model that I mentioned, where we kind of go, ultimately the question we asked in that instance was, what would happen if we didn't work on this thing for a quarter or 2 quarters, as opposed to a whole host of other things that, we could equally work on. So apologies to the Chromecast fans here. I think actually it's been released, so actually I might not have to apologize to you all. But that was, I suppose, like a conversation that we stuck to our guns on, in a sense that we've had multiple requests from audience, we've had multiple requests from, other parts of, the content and marketing, etc. But we kind of, again, have been quite transparent to say there's all of these other things. If we delayed it, the value to be lost was so much more than this thing, which is great. It's, a bugbear for a lot of people. But also, I suppose, like giving them the context of why we picked what we picked and why we didn't pick this thing. So that, suppose, was an example of, we had the data telling us something a bit different, but we kind of had to look at the overall sort of priority and go, if we don't work on this thing for another quarter, yes, we'll get some complaints, but equally, the other things, if we postpone, we'd lose much more value. Yeah, it's a really good, I'm sure I have fans of John Cutler on either side of me in the room, but if you look up, he's got a great article called, I think he calls it the Magic Prioritization Framework. And the trick is to really kind of define what does urgency mean. And urgency is not, someone's yelling loudest, so it's the most urgent. Urgency is what happens, like when you start delaying something and your value is lost the more you delay it. So I'll ping you that link, or you can just look up John Cutler's Magic Prioritization Framework.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
I think that's all the time we have for all the
I guess
questions.
one
Okay, I think Kia has one more question I really want to come in. Perfect.
So it's just on the theme of not talking about AI. The question is, what's the belief about product thinking that you had 5 years ago, for example, that you no longer, or you've since changed your mind on?
Good question.
I mean, we'll talk about, I'll say Marty Kagan's name, because I, up until recently, was always, kind of going, oh, that's the sort of ideal, way of working, way of product thinking, way of being a product-led org. And I would often kind of go, but why? We're not doing that. Like, we're not, using product thinking. We're not doing the things that, should be happening.
Ideal.
And I think I've just really kind of become more pragmatic about we work where we work. There's the realities and the constraints of how we work. That doesn't mean we can't do product thinking. It just is going to look very different to those Silicon Valley case studies. And I don't know how true the Silicon Valley case studies are. I mean, you hear a story being told. We don't know what's happening inside. So I think it's really kind of letting go of some of those, oh, we're not doing this and that. Like, I want my stakeholders in sprint planning and all those kind of, I don't know,
it's
textbook or expected, or I don't know, what's so kind of told to be ideal ways of working.
I think to your point about constraints, though, it's also a very different reality of actually people questioning whether it's feasible to chase unlimited growth, because all those constraints are in an environment where it's zero interest and growth at all costs, right?
Yeah.
So
I think, just kind of, especially like coming back to the ABC, our mandate is so broad, like to serve, all Australians. We could never do a play like what Spotify does or what Netflix does. So it's kind of coming back to like, what's our strengths and how can we still compete? Like, we still want to, compete and provide a good value to our audience or listeners. So, yeah.
We can clearly see Product Powers have a lot of like John Cutler fans here instead of Marty Kagan. And also, thanks to Paru, we actually interviewed John Cutler a few months ago. And then everyone, please do go to listen, because he did share a little bit about his perspective about what is the Silicon Valley product organization actually look like and how different it is about how we're thinking about it as well. So he actually answered that particular question basically from. But he did plead us afterwards to say, please don't put that in the short highlight at the beginning of a podcast. Please make sure. But it is in the full contents there. So
I mean, John Cutler is very pragmatic, so, I'm taking sides, but I don't care.
please listen. But thank you so much, Paru.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Such a fun conversation.
Had so much fun. As always.
Thanks, folks.
Oh, thank you all for coming as well. Last one of the day is Adam, who is actually going to talking about how to do product in the public sector as well.
And innovation.